Coming in at number 5, we have your email address. Yeah, that's right. Now this one may come as a surprise to you, but hear me out. You do not want to Google your email address, simply because it may surprise you where it might show up. Some Reddit users reported sold accounts and password leaks. Honestly, you may want to give it a search just to make sure you're safe. But thankfully there is a website for that called Have I Been Pwned? This is a website which allows people to check whether their personal data has been compromised due to data breaches. The site collects and analyzes hundreds of database dumps and pastes containing information about billions of leaked accounts, and allows for users to search for their own information by typing in their email address. Honestly, the website is a must. Even I've used it in order to secure my account following password dumps. You never know what part of your account may be out there in the world for anyone to see. You also may be shocked to find out which websites you use have had data breaches. Some of them are big websites, that's all I'm gonna say.
Grudge girl in the mirror. So it turns out there's a video clip out there that's based off of the Japanese and American legend that is the Grudge girl. If you Google her and check out this clip, it's said that later this girl will appear in your mirror and attack you. She peeps at you from the mirror very abruptly, and it's very terrifying. This girl is very realistic. She peers at you through your mirror and then reaches out and scratches your eyes out. Yeah, no thanks, not about that.
Coming in at number 3, we have dark web. The dark web is the World Wide Web content that exists on dark nets, overlay networks that use the internet but require specific software or authorization to access. Essentially, this is a place you don't want to be. The dark net is typically used for illegal activities such as illegal trades, forums, and media exchange for abusers and terrorists. A December 2014 study by Gareth Owen from the University of Portsmouth found that the most commonly hosted type of content on the dark web was pornography, followed by black markets. According to January 2015 graph, the top 10 categories based on activity are drugs, market, fraud, Bitcoin, mail, wiki, whistleblower, counterfeit, and forum. Many hackers sell their services on the dark web either individually or as part of a group. Not to mention cybercrimes and hacking services for financial institutions and banks have also been offered over the dark web. Not to mention all those phishing sites that try to catch us out all originate here, with cloned websites and other scam sites being in abundance. With darknet markets often advertised with fraudulent URLs. Within the dark web, there also exists emerging social media platforms similar to those on the World Wide Web. Facebook and other social media platforms have begun to make dark web versions of their websites to address problems associated with the traditional platforms and to continue their service in all areas of the web. Now, although much of the dark web is innocuous, some prosecutors and government agencies are concerned that it is a haven for criminal activity, considering the dark web is a haven for providing anonymity. Coming in at number 2, we have Calculus Bridge. Calculus Bridge is perhaps one of the most disturbing things I've had to read about / look at. Whenever anything concerns teeth and bad dental hygiene, it makes my body squirm. In dentistry, calculus or tartar is a form of hardened plaque that typically develops on the inside of your teeth, caused by a precipitation of minerals from saliva and gingival crevicular fluid. Essentially, it is a plaque that hardens, allowing for more plaque to form on top. This in turn leads to calculus buildup, as well as bad breath, receding gums, and chronically inflamed gingiva. Now, brushing and flossing can remove plaque, however, once calculus is formed, it is too hard to be removed with a toothbrush. Now, there is a way to prevent this. Toothpaste with zinc citrate has been shown to produce a statistically significant reduction in plaque accumulation. Now, if tartar is not removed, the bacteria from it can affect the gums and eventually the bone too. Bleeding gums is usually the first sign of inflammation, also known as gingivitis. If left untreated, gingivitis may progress to periodontitis, which is a serious infection of the structure supporting the teeth. Some symptoms of gum disease are as follows: red, swollen, or tender gums, bleeding when brushing or flossing, receding gums, persistent bad breath, and loose teeth. In order to avoid calculus bridge, visit your dentist regularly to receive professional cleaning in order to remove the plaque. But honestly, I advise you not to look at any pictures of this calculus bridge because it is absolutely disgusting and I feel sick. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have the Killing of Tim McLean. And warning, this one is very disturbing and upsetting, so proceed with caution. On July 30th, 2008, Tim McLean boarded a Greyhound bus in Canada heading from Edmonton back to his hometown of Winnipeg. He was seated in the back row, just ahead of the toilets. The bus made a stop in Manitoba, picking up a new passenger, Vince Waiguan Ling, who was described as a tall man in his 40s with a shaved head and sunglasses. Now, he originally sat at the front of the bus, but following a scheduled rest stop, he moved to sit next to McLean, who barely acknowledged Lee was there before falling asleep against the window window with headphones covering his ears. Not long after, Lee produced a large knife, which he used to attack McLean with, repeatedly stabbing him in the neck and chest. The driver pulled over to the side of the road and all passengers escaped the bus, with the driver and 2 other men attempting to rescue McLean, but were chased away by Lee, who attacked them at the doors. Lee then went on to decapitate McLean and display his head to those standing outside. He then returned and began to do more unspeakable things that I won't get into right now. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police quickly arrived, with them engaging in a standoff with Lee, which resulted in him getting tasered twice, handcuffed and arrested. In the weeks that followed, pictures and videos of the incident began to surface online, with the horrific tragedy being watched by millions, and many requesting increased security on buses. As of 2017, Lee was living independently with no restrictions, which is absolutely disgusting to me.
Starting off in our number 5 spot, death map. Yeah, if the word death is in the site title, then you probably should avoid going on it. This site shows you in real life time a statistical simulation of people dying around the world. This is shown on an interactive map where red dots pop up for deaths and green dots pop up for births. This isn't so bad, seeing deaths along with births, a little give and take. But it turns pretty morbid when you check off the show deaths box and then you're just sitting there essentially watching people die all across the world. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend going on this site. Anything that allows you to see how easy it would be for us to all be those red dots and take your mortality into question isn't a site that should be so easily accessible.
Coming in at number 4, we have Ed Gein Leather. Born Edward Theodore Gein, also known as the Butcher of Plainfield, he was a convicted murderer and body snatcher in the 50s. Gein held a number of different jobs, including being a handyman, receiving subsidy from the federal government. It was also noted that he had a particular fascination with cannibals as well as Nazi atrocities. Now, on the morning of November 16, 1957, hardware store owner Bernice Warden disappeared. It was noted that Ed Gein had been in the store the evening prior to Bernice's disappearance, and that he returned the following morning for a gallon of antifreeze. On the evening of the same day, Gein was arrested at a West Plainfield grocery store, with the sheriff's department searching his farm. What they found was absolutely disgusting. On his property, they discovered Warden's decapitated body hung upside down and dressed like a deer. Upon searching the house, they discovered the following: whole human bones and fragments, a wastebasket made of human skin covering several chair seats, skulls on his bedpost, bowls made from human skulls, and much, much more. The artifacts were photographed and then destroyed, with the pictures still available online. When questioned, Gein informed investigators that between 1947 and 1952, he made as many as 40 nocturnal visits to local graveyards to exhume recently buried bodies while he was in a daze-like state. The deranged Gein eventually went on to spend the rest of his life in a mental hospital before passing away from lung cancer on July 26, 1984, at the age of 77.
At number 3, death date. Okay, so why would you want to know when you're going to die? Yeah, I get the fact that it allows you to do all the things you wanted to do before physically leaving this earth, but at what cost? You could do something really dangerous and die even sooner. And what happens if you find out you're gonna die at a young age? It's just best not to know. So one site that really freaks people out is called Death Date. It basically takes the pretty much impossible task of telling someone the exact day on which they're going to die. When you go on the site, you are presented with this question: so you want to know when? If you click yes, then you need to answer some more questions, such as your height, weight, birth date, gender, and if you partake in alcohol, drugs, or you smoke cigarettes. Once you fill out this information, the site will tell you which day you will die on exactly and how much time you have left on this earth. It will show you a countdown clock, including the number of years, months, weeks, days, minutes, and seconds you have remaining on Earth. The only positive thing about this is that there hasn't been any deaths that have reportedly coincided with this. But then again, if you're dead, how are you gonna let the site know? Coming in at number 2, the fifth nail exposed. This is a website that contains the blog of a convicted serial killer and violent sexual predator. Basically, this killer/pedophile was raping young kids since he was a teenager in the 70s, and he's been documenting it. It was later realized that this blog belonged to a man named Joseph E. Duncan III. Joseph would handwrite letters from his cell in prison and send them to a creep who runs the blog for him. When this person receives letters from Joseph, he would then type them up for him and post them on his site. The postings on the site are very detailed and graphic. It really allows you into the mind of this dangerous serial killer. It's one thing to watch Criminal Minds and true crime stories and stuff like that, but this site is just on a whole other level. And in at number 1, Bestgore. So not only is the site extremely disturbing and controversial, it also landed its founder, Mark Merrick, in jail due to how messed up it is. Yeah, that pretty much says everything right there. So Bestgore is pretty much a shock site. Basically, its whole purpose is to shock the user. It does this by uploading the most disturbing images and videos you will ever come across in your life. So you might be saying to yourself, come on, how bad could it be? Well, it contains images and videos of beheadings, dismemberment, and even rape. What makes this even more messed up and disgusting is the fact that all of the contents posted on this site are 100% real. Nothing on this site is pretend, it's all stuff that is happening on our planet. These are images, videos, and recordings that will leave you with nightmares. People go onto the site because they are curious, and they leave the site wishing they didn't let their curiosity get the best of them. So many people have gone onto forums telling people not to make the same mistake they did and to avoid going on the site. Because once you see something that disturbing, you can never unsee it. Shockingly enough, even with the site's creator behind bars, the site is still up. There's literally only one warning on the site that reads, "Warning, extremely graphic." But I do have to mention that this warning comes after the banner picture of a girl who's naked being spit roasted over a fire. Yeah. Starting off at our number 5 spot, Ring Girl, aka Samara. This girl with the long white dress, long gangly hair, and demonic face were all people could talk about after seeing the movie The Ring. She became an iconic character in horror movies and is definitely someone you don't want to Google. If you Google her, you're just going to come across a lot of terrifying pictures and you're going to have a hard time sleeping. It also didn't help that this movie was released with so much hype around it. After people saw this movie, they referred to it as this generation's Exorcist due to how scary it was. I remember for my 12th or 13th birthday, we rented this movie for a sleepover. Yes, back in the day, we would go to a store and rent movies. It was a whole thing. Anyway, so we rented it, and I remember it being really creepy. And it actually had a really messed up backstory with it as well. But aside from all of that, the way that they made this character of a little girl look as scary as they did was really impressive and iconic, especially seeing as they still use this look in many other horror movies to this day. And at number 4, Joy of Satan. This is a site that is dedicated to Satan, and it's for people who follow the religion Satanism. Yep, that exists. For those of you who are like, what the heck is Satanism? Well, apparently it all started in 1966. And it's the following of ideological and philosophical beliefs based on the characters of Satan. This site contains endless information on the religion, so this includes the belief's origin, details about Lucifer, and even how to become a Satanist. So the most unsettling part of all of this is how the site tries to get the visitors to join Satanism. It's really directed towards troubled teens, and it encourages them to join the site and summon demons. They use the fact that teens like to rebel and are impressionable to their advantage, and they suck them in. Some people might find this silly, but the people who run this site are clearly disturbed, and they are trying to have other people join them in their beliefs. At number 3, Henry Lee Lucas. This man is known as America's most prolific serial killer, and the facts that back up this title are unbelievably terrifying. It's said that he has killed at least 350 people in a 20-year time span. What's really bizarre is that he actually incriminated himself even more by admitting to killing over 600 people. Before all these killings came to light, Lucas was sent to prison in 1960 for killing his mother. 10 years later, in 1970, he was released due to overcrowding. Yeah, it might just be me, but in my opinion, if a jail is overcrowded, you don't just go and let all of the murderers out, especially the ones who are capable of killing their own mother. After his release, he became a drifter and became friends with a man named Otis Toole. Otis later became his accomplice for over 100 murders. Lucas went back to jail yet again after he tried to kidnap a 15-year-old girl. He was then released in 1975. Then he killed 2 more women and yet again went to jail in 1983. It was at this time that he confessed to murdering hundreds of people. Finally, after his confession, Lucas sat on death row and was later charged to life in prison. He died in a Texas prison on March 12, 2001 from natural causes. Coming in at number 2, Mary Flora Bell. I've talked about this girl before, but oh my god, is she ever scary. So when Mary Flora Bell was just 11 years old, she was apprehended by authorities and told them that she strangled a 4-year-old to death. When asked why she would do such a thing, she replied by saying that she did it solely for the pleasure and excitement of killing. This was in 1968. Then a few months later, a 3-year-old suffered the same fate. She even later returned to the 3-year-old's body and carved an M into his stomach. At first, 2 other girls were charged for the deaths of these 2 young boys. But eventually authorities locked up Mary Bell, who now at this point already had a history of attacking other children. Years later, at the age of 23, Mary Bell was released from prison, and she was given a new identity. 4 years later, she had a daughter. She later won a court ruling to protect her identity and her daughters, as well as any possible grandchildren. So currently, right now, she would be around 61 years old, and she could be anywhere. She could currently be your elderly next door neighbor and you wouldn't even know it. And in at number 1, Armin Muse. This story starts off with a place called Cannibal Cafe, which you might recognize from our scary deep web stories video. Armin is known as the Rottenburg Cannibal or the Master Butcher. He went on the Cannibal Cafe site to try and find a willing volunteer to be slaughtered and then consumed. Yeah, I wish I was making this up, but it's true. Quite a few people responded to this ad but ended up backing out. Then a few weeks later in March of 2001, an engineer from Berlin named Bernd Brands replied. The two then met up on March 9th in Armin's home. These two men decided to make a home video of their experience. Brands took 20 sleeping pills and a bottle of cough syrup. Then Armin amputated Brands' penis. What makes this even more twisted is that this amputation was at Brands' request, and Brands actually asked Armin to bite his penis off instead of using any tools. So Armin tried, but apparently it was too chewy. So he used a knife to cut off the appendage, and then the two men attempted to eat it together. Yes, this man attempted to eat his own penis, but again, it was too chewy. So Armin fired it up with some salt, pepper, wine, and garlic, but it ended up burning, so he just fed it to his dog. And all of this time, Brands was bleeding out. Armin then said a prayer and stabbed Brands in the throat, and then he hung his lifeless body on a meat hook. Armin then chopped up Brands' body, and over the course of 10 months, he slowly continued to eat it before being caught by authorities. He was arrested in 2002 when a college student alerted authorities to new advertisements for victims online. Investigators searched his home and found body parts and the videotape of the killing.